The history of the DC Universe, Part 2. Things are about to get a little bit crazier, and as we head into the crisis. So, hopefully you're paying attention. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Longbox Diving, where we explore comics and story arcs pulled from the Longbox. Now, this series is a little bit different from our other series. We're actually doing something called the History of the DC Comic Universe. Episode 1, we talked about a lot of different stuff, and now we're starting on Episode 2, where we pick up where we left off. Now, in the last episode of the History of the DC Comics Universe, we talked about New Kronos, a floating island out there in the middle of space with the Harbinger's orb, and Donna Troy is there, and they're discussing the history of the DC Universe. And we kind of discussed the multiverse, what the multiverse was, the differences between Earth 1 and Earth 2. We actually talked about the first crisis, where the Earth 1 and Earth 2 heroes banded together to fight off a common threat. And then we left off with a picture of the Anti-Monitor, and the Monitor kind of split in half, and with this idea that there was this new crisis coming. So that's where we pick up with this episode. So the arrival of those two, the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor, actually bring a whole host of problems into the DC Comic Universe. When we think of Earth, we think about our Earth, this Earth. But in reality, there's many, many, many Earths, each varying just slightly from each other into infinity. And this is known as the multiverse. And the multiverse has many different universes, each replicated, each vibrating just slightly differently, and it goes on into infinity. So there are so many universes in the multiverse that you probably couldn't count it. There's no way anybody could ever figure out how many different universes are out there within the multiverse. So the Anti-Monitor actually started what's called the antimatter wave, and this started rolling through the multiverse, and as everything it touched, it would actually destroy it completely, wipe it out. And so the first place it actually hit was Earth 3. And as we know, Earth 3 is actually run by supervillains, the supervillain versions of our heroes here on our Earth. But they couldn't do anything to stop the antimatter wave. It just wiped everything out. But there's one person from that Earth was able to escape in a rocket, very, very reminiscent of the Superman origin story. Shot out before the antimatter wave, went into some other universe that didn't have the antimatter wave, wasn't there, and his name was Alexander Luthor. Now, he would later play a very pivotal role in the coming crisis. Now, the heroes from different universes banded together to try to stop this wall of death. And they were led by the Monitor and Harbinger, the orb that's kind of helping to tell Donna Troy belonged to that Harbinger. Now, this Harbinger, they really didn't have a lot of, they had very little chance as it was fighting this Anti-Monitor. But after Harbinger killed the Monitor, everything just kind of got worse. Their chances just went, gone. So, but the heroes are heroes, and that's what they do, and so they continue to battle on, even though they knew it was a losing battle. And then Alexander Luthor stepped forward, and he was able to lead the greatest force of heroes in the multiverse against the Anti-Monitor. And then he knew, this kind of battle won't come without sacrifice, and it's going to cost a lot. And as they fought, they knew it didn't matter what the cost, they would have to continue to fight. And up until Kara-El, Supergirl, died. And she's, in Superman's arms. And, there's very touching panels here laid out where she just she dies. And that was, everybody there had kind of lost hope. But there was more death to come. This was just the first death of many fighting the Anti-Monitor. Now, the multiverse was basically destroyed. It had wiped out almost everything. It was called the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it wiped out almost every Earth in existence except for Earth 1. And one Earth left. Now, it wasn't necessarily Earth 1, but there was only one Earth left. And when Kara died, like you said, all the heroes had basically lost hope. She's one of the strongest of us. What are we going to do? Now, the Anti-Monitor launched and created this antimatter cannon using the weapon as a Accord, which we know is a planet on the antimatter side. And he was hoping to be able to destroy the heroes with this cannon. It's one last push to wipe out the rest of the heroes. Now, Flash, Barry Allen, from Earth 1, realized this cannon and what they needed to do to stop it. So he started running into the cannon to find the power source, an antimatter cannon. And as he runs through this, just grabbing all the energy, that antimatter slowly killing him. But he was able to take all that energy, the force of the flow, and actually direct it back at the machine. But at the same time, of course, it was killing him. It was eating his body away. Time warped around him, and people were able to see different versions of him through the past and into the future. And as he pushed the energy into the cannon, it destroyed the cannon, but it also caused him kind of, I guess, die of old age. He just kind of was gone. So, second major hero to die in this huge battle with the Anti-Monitor. Now, the Anti-Monitor went back to the beginning of time. And the Anti-Monitor started draining, all the heroes came with him. All the heroes came after him to fight him there at the beginning of time. And he started draining their life forces. And being that far back in time, he realized, hey, one last assault, this would ensure that antimatter becomes the dominant universe within, and it would reign supreme, and all the other matter universes would be destroyed. This erased, I mean, everything was basically gone, and there's just one thing left, one universe left. So the remaining heroes, including Superman from Earth 2, the older one, the one with the gray, he was the one that actually led the final assault against the Anti-Monitor. Now, Superman from Earth 2, within this battle, was actually able to kill the Anti-Monitor. And all the heroes that were left, it kind of collapsed in together into one Earth. So we had some heroes from Earth 1, we had some heroes from Earth 2, and from other places. They all kind of collapsed down into one Earth. The problem is there were still some redundancies, like Superman from Earth 2, Lois Lane from Earth 2, Earth Prime Superboy, Earth 3, Alexander Luthor. They couldn't stay in that Earth with the other people of who they are. I mean, they're different universes, but they're the same people. So there was redundancy. So Alexander Luthor was able to use his antimatter abilities to create a place for them to stay. You know, they thought it would be a home of everlasting peace, but that's what they thought. But the universe survived, and it began to grow and flourish again, and heroes were born again. And no one remembered what happened with the Crisis on Infinite Earth except for one dude, Psycho Pirate. And we wonder why Psycho Pirate's crazy. I mean, can you imagine remembering the death of the multiverse and everybody dying and versions of you dying throughout the multiverse? That would drive anybody insane. Now, that's the end of episode 2. And we will pick back up with the story of the history of the DC Universe, comic universe, next time here in the Long Box.